along with my European colleagues, we have organised a really interesting and we hope a pertinent webinar session today for you. Can I just say a few things before we start? Firstly, just to note, this session is being recorded and we will take screenshots throughout the session. So if anyone has concerns, can I ask you to please leave your video camera off, or alternatively, you might need to leave the session. So thank you. So our title for consideration and debate today is Post-Pandemic Practice. Post-Pandemic Practice in Europe, Relearning, Rethinking and Reframing. Implications for art teachers. So this will be the first of a series of webinars as the InSEA ERC members would like to invite with them their guests and you to reflect on the challenges facing art and design education across Europe. And not wishing to underplay the very serious impact of COVID that it's had clearly across Europe and the tragedies on many people's everyday lives, we would like to feel and to start to think about the long-term and far-reaching effects of this pandemic and start to obviously think about how that's starting to unfold in schools as they return. We would argue we need new approaches to address some of these inequalities that are starting to appear as a consequence. And InSEA and the ERC would like to bring art teachers together to ensure that they play a leading and pivotal role in pushing for change. This is a moment where we must come together to ensure that art teachers are supported in dealing with change and offer approaches to challenge established ways of working, thinking, and being in our schools. This series has been deliberately designed to bring European art teachers together to form an alliance and to share good practice for art education. We hope to celebrate innovations and foster interconnectiveness, as well as move into the next phase of a kind of response and recovery. So today, the webinar panel and its presenters will offer national perspectives from different European Council members, including Finland, Germany, Greece, Hungary, and the UK. Each nation will have 15 minutes each to present, and we will have at the end about 30 minutes for questions and answers. So can I ask you to use the chat box, open up the chat box, and each time a different group will present. Could you put your questions into the chat box, and the chair, myself and Ernst, we'll do our best to try to facilitate and enable your questions in the last sort of 30-minute sector. So let's begin. Can I ask our first group from Greece and Maria to switch on their cameras and mics and introduce themselves and begin. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning. I'm Maria Letsiu from ERC InSEA. And today we're pleased to welcome 3 art teachers from Greece, Ms. Celine Botsford from the Art Education Network of Syros Island, Ms. Margarita Stavraki from the 2nd Junior High School of Kalamata, and Ms. Evgenia Pala from the 1st Experimental High School in Athens. And today they will be sharing with us the expertise in dealing with distance art learning. In order to engage you in an interactive activity, I will share with you in the chat a link of a paddle platform, but Ms. Botsford will give you the further instruction on how to use it. Ms. Botsford, welcome to our webinar.
Hello and thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. So I hope you can all see the first slide, which says in Greek, "Μένουμε δημιουργικοί," staying creative. This is an art initiative that was launched in the very beginning of March this year, where a major lockdown came through to Greece and all our schools were shut down. When our schools were shut down, most of them were not prepared for this, and they did not start online education immediately. And when they did start, unfortunately, the art lessons were very, very slow to follow. They pretty much started in the end. As an art educator myself, working in schools, and as a parent, I was worried about primarily not so much the academic gap that would happen. I was worried more about the limbo and the loss of sort of routine within the day. I've also have the Art Education Network of Syros Island, which holds art education programs for children and adults, live ones obviously, which are free of charge on the island of Syros. It's in a village called Posidonia. I decided that we're not going to be stagnant at this point in time, and we are going to launch Staying Creative. Now, this was the first online project in Greece, which started to engage with all of the children of Greece on a daily basis. What I did was every day we uploaded a new theme and we had a new exhibition. The themes we used were very easy to follow, so a young child could follow these themes. They had an academic aspects. We talked about other artists, movements, themes, a lot of visual material. And the materials they were using were materials they could find at home. That was very, very important, such as making glue from corn flour, for example. And very, very important was also the last bit. They reflected the quarantine situation thematically. That means we had themes such as drawing my own bedroom, which was huge, as children were starting to see their surroundings in a completely different way. We had themes such as drawing the view out of my window here. At this point in time, we had children engaging from all over Greece, and it was very, very interesting because they could put their name and the place they were sending the picture from, and we could see a view outside their window. Obviously, we had academic references such as Matisse's windows for things like that. And then we had subjects such as I'm a superhero, which of course we had a lot of coronavirus superheroes, and we also had simple superheroes who saved cats, which was very sweet. At this point, we had almost 410 participations per day, submissions per day. So you can imagine hosting an exhibition every day that had 400 pictures in it. It became quite a full-time job, which was great, of course. Another subject that I thought was really, really interesting that we uploaded was drawing a member of my family. A lot of parents at that time were working from home. The situation was tense, and it made everybody stand still and start looking at each other. So trying to get the positives out of being all at home together. And I love this picture because it's a drawing of a member of my family. It's a child drawing their sister, and I think it's very symbolic of young kids in quarantine at a prolonged period of time. To draw while listening to a piece of music, I shared with them a link with Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. So they were all listening to one piece of music and practice synesthesia. So we had different ages reflecting to this practice. Drawing Syros differently. Syros is a small island in the Cyclades. It's the capital of the Cyclades in Greece. And we drew attention to our island, Syros. So we gave them the map and said, what can you do with this map? At this point in time, we had people, children applying sending submissions from all over the world. We also had a national holiday. So I had a theme which questioned how you can create your own vest inspired by traditional Greek vests. Now, the most important thing, I believe, throughout this project was that we had, obviously, as I told you, up to 110 submissions per day, but we ran for 2 months straight. You can imagine for about 60 days, every day, uploading a theme, keeping kids occupied, and having an exhibition every evening that they can look at with their parents or grandparents and siblings, and having their work uploaded online. All this was done in our Facebook page of the Art Education Network of Syros Island. The three most important achievements, I feel, were that it created a daily routine and a sense of satisfaction for their achievements, which is vital during this time. Children and adults to start seeing their surroundings in a different light and to create a support platform. We were talking with parents through messages, and they were chatting under the exhibition, so create a huge support platform. Now, what I'm trying to do, we would like to do now, is sort of an interactive project. If you have a pen and a piece of paper, whatever it is to look at the big elephant in the room, which is basically the screen. I'm teaching high school students as well, and I held a lesson through WebEx, through which we said, right, we want to practice life drawing, and we're looking at this screen. Why don't we take advantage of it? So I would like you, if you'd like, through the process of this webinar, to be drawing the screen. And we have created a Padlet, which you will be able to find the link of in the chat, where we would be you can upload your pictures, or you can send your pictures to the email you see here that will be put in the chat too. Everything will then be uploaded at the Art Education Network of Pseudoscience, Instagram. You can find us here on these addresses I've sent. And I'm really, really looking forward to your drawings. Thank you.
Teaching visual arts by distance learning during the quarantine period, Second Junior High School of Kalamata. When we're guaranteed almost worldwide in March 2020, we're all surprised. The initial shock of the global freeze, it turned pretty soon into a universal launch of digital media. After all, the digital tools of communication, creation, dissemination have been around for a long time, and they only needed an opportunity for mass use. Our teachers in Greece are teaching many group of students in several schools. Our colleagues, in order to resist the chaotic situation of not belonging anywhere, they have created educational blog pages and profiles on social media, and they are members of groups in order to create small digital communities. At the moment of quarantine, most of the teachers started to communicate and teach through official school websites, personal email, social media, website links. After a short period of time, the Greek Ministry of Education proposed to us specific programs and platforms for e-teaching, asynchronous education and synchronous education. The educational process that we follow, and therefore we propose, we start our communication with an introduction note that explains the peculiar condition we live in and is addressed to our students with interest in their physical and psychological condition. We try to communicate with them, keeping in mind that we are invading their private space, and this requires respect and fine handling. The introduction notes aims to catch the thread of communication with students. We try to reduce the lack of physical contact by opening the access to us. This is the basis for activating students. We give to our students choice between pairs of exercises, urging both of them to be done if one wants to experiment and work more. Somehow we intervene less in their plentiful time, giving them freedom in managing it. We make sure that the exercises are of a different nature, for example, a skill exercise or an exercise of imagination or expression. Our students choose what they like best, but also can learn something extra in case they decide to make them both. We introduce our topic theoretically. We present the technical characteristics that we concern us, suggest materials accessible to students, and encourage them to use the material of their choice. During our online teaching, we can give more examples based on our students' interests. We present examples from artists with similar work or students' work. One idea is to exhibit one of our own artworks or a piece that we especially love, so that our students feel that we are both exposed. Virtual exhibition, digital art archives help present our topic. Support can be given via synchronous messages, e-class, or synchronous and asynchronous messages via email and messengers, and live on WebEx with the tools that it offers: drawing, whiteboard, audio discussion, visuals, annotation tools, chat. And here is an example. Strengthening students' engagement. We try to engage our students by giving them options, choice of exercise, material, delivery time, even projects of their own interest. We present our topic with an iconography that touches their aesthetic references. We are accessible. We respond with solutions to their own aesthetic concerns. We encourage them to use technology creatively. We present digital artworks. During our online class, we give them the chance to represent themselves as they like, with open camera and sound, with an image or a drawing, with messages on chat, etc. We ask frequently questions and their contribution to the lesson by following the list of their names naughtily. We divide our class to smaller groups, and we get active students to approach the inactive. We try to overcome our students' technical problems. We also ask help of our classmates. Our goal is to encourage the development of a small digital art community that will be fueled by the art course. And here are some examples from Jean-Augustin Dominique Ingres to Lady Gaga, from students drawing to Da Vinci's, from present digital artworks like David Hockney iPad artworks. We collect our students' work in the form of
is meeting from time to time, and due to COVID we couldn't meet anymore. So after a period of shock, we decided to have virtual meeting every week on Wednesday evening, and during these meetings we also exchange our experience with the strange situation we all faced. And in this talk, Tim presented some of his works he did at school, and I think they were so exciting, and that's why I suggested that he could do a presentation here in this webinar. So I would like to give the floor to Tim, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ernst, for these nice words. Now, I hope you can see my screen now. And I want to introduce some artworks by students during homeschooling at our school at the Wittelsbacher Gymnasium in Munich. Now, I'm going to show two topics. Topic one are the Corona monsters, and topic two are love letters. Instead of showing a whole bunch of very various topics, I want to concentrate on these two. And I want to say some words about the specific condition at our school. Now, first of all, is we have teacher training for art teachers, and I'm a teacher trainer as well. So we had the very difficult situation of having young teachers just started their work at school. They were just coming from academy, and they had about 1 week of teaching experience when the lockdown came. So we had to teach those ongoing teachers as well of how to teach and how to struggle with a lockdown situation. And so the following lessons are all together with Ronja Bernhardt, who was my one of the young teachers who were just learning. And at our school, art, the subject art, has a high reputation because of this teacher training. And I want to show two different situations. Phase one was the lockdown, complete homeschooling, and phase two, the relaxation, when students came in weekly alternation to school, and in the other week they were at home. And I want to face this topic because I think it's most likely to come back to this situation again, more likely than to a complete lockdown, at least in Germany. Phase one was the expression of the unknown, the expression of fear, the expression of how everything changed. And the relaxation, we try to come back to a kind of normality, to give structure, give the feeling of school being quite normal again. And phase one, so the Corona monsters, I'm talking about kids aged 11 to 12, grade 6, and they had the task to draw their vision of the virus and to give the virus a shape, face, a body. And I want to show some of the results the kids made. This is a girl. She interpreted the virus of some kind of an animal with a lot of arms and legs, and here some signs that are connected with the situation here for verboten. I think everybody understands. Abgesagt means yeah, things cannot happen anymore. Here's some more pictures of the virus, and you can see how different kids come to it, and how different they approach the topic. Here, some you see they kind of do it more in a comic style, maybe inspired also by more common images of the virus that they also find on Instagram or Google. And here getting more personal, more individual with, and I like this one very much because it doesn't look like a virus anymore. It's more like a monster. It's more like maybe in middle age, the people facing pandemic situations interpreted this and interpreted their fears and the unknown into a kind of a dragon or a monster. And also this one I think is very strong. And in the second step, the students were supposed to show how the virus spreads into the world and the danger it affects everywhere. And so about the surrounding, we tried to communicate very close to the students. They send us their pictures, their drawings, and we reacted to them more or less immediately, but very individually, and gave them tips to how they can improve or how they can get on. So it was real art lesson. And here you see how they put the virus in the city. It's not Munich, but it's some and it can be any city, of course. And I think this one is also very interesting because you can see the dimension of how big the virus is and how small people become, and the force, the power, the destructive force the virus has. And maybe you recognize this picture. It's from the girl in the beginning and the next step. And let me just go into some details, which is very interesting. She has different roles of people. Here, the reporter, or this one, Infizierter, so someone who is infected with the virus. Also, this couple here, they don't recognize anything, what's going on. Dicker Chef, which means he's the chief, whatever. And here, someone fainting, and this old lady says she's already seen things being more dangerous or being more, whatever. And closed shops. So she interpreted all what's going on in the city, in their life, into this painting, drawing. Okay. And this is also from the boy with the monster, with the and how, like tentacles, it destroys everything. Now, next step was changing also the material into everyday objects. So the students were supposed to choose objects from everyday life and transform them into their monster, and then making photos from it. And we reflected it with Archimboldo, because he did, of course, not with a virus, but transforming fruits or objects into faces. And here, this is what the students send us. After putting the objects to the virus, they were supposed to destroy it. So the kids were empowered to gain sovereignty again and to beat the monster. This is another student. And here you can also see very nice the action. Our intent was to not only give the kids the possibility to express themselves, but also to do things they would do in normal art lessons as well, yeah, like choosing objects from the same color, arranging them, so that they also learn something about the practice of art. And I like this one very much, because you can see also how she went through decisions. First, looking for objects in green, then in red, same student, and then arranging them to a, I think, very expressive figure. And here you can see her destroying her monster. I think some of her siblings or parents made the picture. Okay, some more pictures here. Now, the second task were love letters from Cleopatra and Caesar. And now we have a different situation. Students came back to school for in a rhythm, in a weekly rhythm, and the classes were divided into two teams, and we did this situation in team teaching. Like the group that were at home, they were taught by video at the same time, like the group that were in school, they had presence. And team teaching worked because we were two teachers, as I mentioned before. And we divided the task into parts. Part one was the students were supposed to write a letter here on the right side, a love letter from Cleopatra to Caesar, or from Caesar to Cleopatra. And on the left side, they were supposed to do a drawing and also to do some research about the historical background and a drawing of how they imagine the everyday life of Cleopatra or Caesar. Okay, and I think that this is for me an interesting model, because it shows how we can bring together two forms of education into one work that might also, yeah, give some hints for non-pandemic situations as well.
Tim, 2 minutes, please.
Yes. Here are the drawings from Caesar and Cleopatra. And these are the letters. I translated them into English. And of course, the kids are in an age where love and all this is just on the way to become interesting for them. And maybe this expresses also in the letters. Here, I like this one very much. I don't know if you can read it on the right, because, yeah. So, one more. Okay, this was it.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. I think this was fascinating examples. So thank you very much again, and I would like to hand over to Andy.
Thank you too. Lovely, some really lovely work there, Tim. Really impressive. Some really nice themes coming up. So well done. I'm sure people want to pick out one or two of those things that you've just been talked about. Okay, I'd like to move on, and we're moving to Hungary and Gabriella. Would you like to come to the fore, Gabriella, and start your presentations?
Hello, everyone. I hope you will see my screen soon. Do you see? Hi. My name is Gabriella Pataki, one of the 3 InSEA World Counselors for Europe, and I teach art education in 2 Hungarian universities. I will speak for my almost 40 art teacher training students, and I will be their voice now. And it is my pleasure to be able to speak after Tim. I just put it one note into the chat. We had also 2 big phases in our last semester, but in Hungary, the first one was euphoria and the second was disappointment. Maybe we will go into details later in the question session. The difference between the 2 programs at the 2 university originated from the fact that in the Moholy-Nagy Art University we train artists who already have a degree in art to master's level in art teacher training to teach in specialist art secondary schools. In this program, art is the purpose of education. At in the other university, the LTE we train the students to be primary and secondary school teachers, where art is a tool rather than the outcome. The purpose here is to develop the personality of the children through art rather than train future artists. The 2 groups, how to move on, okay. The 2 groups collaborate with each other, even though in the current situation they don't personally know each other yet. Hence, I haven't divided them into 2 groups. So here is our Budapest community name by name. And my visual essay will have 2 main layers. The first is about challenges and finding my personal path in detecting and solving problems, especially within the business of teacher training, with examples from our everyday life, the lack of community. I certainly am not under the illusion that I would be the most important part in their degree. The main deficiency is in the human interaction between students. Social life is just as important as education, and the students miss each other. My answer, among others, is gamification, rooted in Dadaism and Surrealism. Collaborative online teaching techniques like flipped classroom, team teaching, and others were a big help in the last semester and nowadays also. Communal virtual museum visits and organizing, curating exhibitions like film club. There are thousands of offers what and where to see, but students are often helpless about how to process them. Collaborative, preparation for the future, local outdoor art projects for community building was important and is important still. Aspect of equal opportunity is a very important issue in our programs nowadays. We don't have enough knowledge about living in poverty, even in the heart of Europe. And if you are asking me about local possibilities and local circumstances, poverty is a problem. And I think not only in Hungary. The second part, the second layer is about how my students from the two different universities see and process the characteristics of remote teaching, why they learn and practice their future profession day by day during our surreal circumstances, depriving them from the freedom they are used to. In this weird situation, we try to make advantage from everything, and networking is extremely important. We have started an InSEA collaboration between Hungarian and Japanese art teacher training students in 2017, which has been very active since. The coming visualized mind maps and card games are not only messages from my students, but they give you an insight of the current phase of our international dialogue, changing the experience phenomena in art education during the pandemic, to help finding new ways for development together. Let's see the visuals from the point of view of the future generation of art education. I tried not to speak, just show you the messages. And we are working on a series of card games for the exchange, and we are now ready after the second week of the semester with the first design of the card game pictures, but they are only the first Dixit issues. And we will continue. As next, I offer an insight into our built environment research with our students, which describes the environment students have to use outside school buildings or university. I will show you how we investigate the new normal by looking into new creative spaces. My students let you come into their personal studios, which have no similarities to the romantic art studio vision we were used to. These are elements, these coming elements of our ongoing diagnostic research of how art education spaces have changed recently. To capture the change in the environment of our art studio, we use questionnaires and iconographic methods, among other qualitative methods. Using a few typical examples, I would like to show, first of all, how children create their own workspace. Here, simple for the first impression, but the context and the narrative is very important. Strictly copying the school patterns, these 6-year-old twins could only go to school for a few months, and they reproduced their conditions they loved at school, at home as well. Another typical example is in another family, the children build their ideal study or creation spaces. This is more exciting because of the autonomous space building of the children. And then now look into my students' rooms. How do our everyday living space transform into creative studios. Clean desk policy, as the family often living together, only allows a digital workplace instead of a spacious studio. So this is not a romantic atelier or studio anymore. The floor and the sofa as the tokens of flexibility is coming often. And then slowly we will go outside. Outdoor solutions, the rediscovery of the planner, the new planner, as another consequence of the pandemic, and the new direction in art education to promote conscious, sustainable, ethical, and environmentally friendly mentality, as well as our well-being. My last two slides are two kinds of metaphors. One of my own daughters created a picture which depict us, her parents, and all my students are visible in this picture as well. Lockdown or no lockdown, this picture describes the current situation for all of us. As a consequence of the pandemic, borders ceased to exist, time disappeared, and our work has seeped into the most intimate parts of our lives. Where is the famous formula from the labor movement: 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest? The other metaphor is from Budapest. We already placed Budapest on the map of the first slide of my presentation. Now I will zoom into the facade of the recently refurbished building nearby. And my picture here is a metaphor. People can control the way of the water flow, so can all of us present find the way of education through art under these changed circumstances. And InSEA will be on our side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gabriella. Can I just say some absolutely wonderful, wonderful metaphors for us all to think about. I really enjoyed seeing some of the things you do in the inside, the outside, particularly interesting the idea of the personal studio. So I'm sure there's some great questions that people want to think about with regards to that at the end. So well done, and thank you once again. So next on the list is Susan. Susan and your colleagues in the Northeast. Would you like to take over, please?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Hello, it's nice to see you on a Saturday morning. I'm in a really fortunate position because I'm part of this network of InSEA. I represent Europe on the World Council alongside Gabriella, who you've just met, and Mira, who you will meet shortly. I'm also part of the National Society for Education and Art and Design in the UK, and also part of a very strong network in the northeast of England. So I have selected, and I've had plenty of lovely people to select from, two of our amazing art teachers who I actually met when they were training to be teachers. So we go back some way now. And I'm going to, in a minute, hand over to Brad Hodgson, who works at Cramlington Learning Village, which is in Northumberland in the northeast of England. And he will hand over to Graham Mason, who is subject leader at the Royal Grammar School in Newcastle. And it's really over to my boys now because they can do it all without me. So over to you, Brad.
Hey, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's a bit of a bleak morning over here in the northeast. As Susan says, yeah, I teach at Cramlington, which is it's a very large school, and I'll just share my screen with you guys very quickly, if I can. You should be seeing my screen. There we go. Can everyone see that? There we go. So here today, I'm going to talk to you about the idea of how teaching in the UK has evolved to fit around the impact of COVID-19. As I say, Crompton, we are a very big school. We are over 2,000 students. And really, yeah, what I'll talk to you about today is the idea of how we taught over lockdown, and also the idea of how we're teaching now we are back in school. We've been back kind of 5 weeks, and it's been a very quick kind of 5 weeks as well. What I'll talk about is how our whole school approach, and also our art department's approach to how we started to kind of teach in those 5 weeks. And really, we've kind of gone around 5 kind of R's, one of those R's being new routines. Basically the idea of, yeah, everyone teaching, it's been a bit of a level, regardless of our kind of teaching pedigree, young and old, we're all kind of, yeah, it's experiencing this for the first time. And due to that, we're kind of having to put in place new routines to ensure we're all on the same page, and how we've all kind of adapted our teaching. In the UK, we, like everyone else really, we had 6 months off. And I know it's kind of different in different countries, but we had a full 6 months off from March all the way up to September, including our kind of 6 week, usual 6 week holiday. And yeah, those kind of times teaching, it was all based remotely. So students had to kind of get used to the idea of being taught from us really, remotely, exactly as I've seen examples of today through kind of the idea of kind of Google Drive. That's where we kind of set work, and they, yeah, similar kind of responses to what I've seen, kind of views from Windows, as you can see there, example of a student, year 7, which in the UK is age 11 to 12. And yeah, we've just kind of been used to this idea of how we actually set a new curriculum that is appropriate and also gets the same kind of learning messages that we'd have in a classroom, but deliver it to students at home. That's kind of what we've been focusing on as we've gone, yeah, into the kind of coming back into the classroom, and how do we kind of approach it. We've talked about this idea of reigniting the enthusiasm. So myself, I'm involved in NSEAD, just like Susan, and I'm part of the Wellbeing Special Interest Group. We're very aware of the idea of what's been called a recovery curriculum. It's based on the research of Barry Carpenter. And from that, we could have taken the approach of very much, okay, the idea of well-being and how we get students kind of really thinking about this, but also as people kind of acknowledging the virus, which we wanted to do. We wanted to, in terms of the learning to do with art and photography, we wanted to empower students. I think it's really important in the next kind of few weeks, months, however long this is going to kind of go on for, that students have the enthusiasm, the kind of creative resilience that they're going to need to get through this. So it really got us to think about our curriculum and the idea of what are the kind of key take-homes for our lessons and what are the things students can't do at home. So as we're kind of moving forward, really no one can plan too much because things are very unpredictable. But the idea at this stage is, yeah, what can't students do at home and what can we do in kind of classrooms? Because we're thinking at this stage that we may in future have an idea of blended learning, and the idea that students will be at school for a certain period and then also returning back to home for a certain period. So really got us thinking about what are the important parts of our curriculum. Retrieval practice. So the idea in the UK, and I'm not sure how this has been approached the rest of Europe, be interested in your thoughts on that if you want to put that in the questions. But the idea of retrieval practice is really how do we kind of use knowledge, the idea of metacognition, about students actually thinking about their learning themselves. So as you can see there, an example that we've started doing in our classrooms, we've started having kind of sheets that are there ready for students before the teachers get there. The approach at the moment as part of our new routines is that students are staying in their own bubbles, and what we'll do is we'll move around as teachers, and we're getting very kind of tired as we're getting into this 5-week kind of section, this stint. But yeah, we'll kind of come to their classrooms and they'll have to be there already. And I will say that for the majority of kind of classes that I've been teaching, students are getting on board with that. They're really kind of, their resilience is showing, they're getting kind of on board with a new routine. So they're getting the work out, they're getting these connect tasks out, and they're actually connecting with their learning whilst I'm making my way to the classroom. So it's ensuring that no time is lost, because we've already lost kind of too much at this stage. And it's really about kind of using the time that we've got really effectively. So tapping into prior knowledge and encouraging new learning. And as you can see there, an example with photography, where it's empowering them. I think learning is empowering, and we need to get as much of that as possible in the time that we have. Also, we can say the idea of a focus on relationships and well-being. I think we can all say the one thing that students don't have at home, even though we're there kind of remotely, is they don't have us. So what can they kind of get from us within classrooms? What tone do we present to students? The strange thing I found being kind of an art teacher and a teacher who normally kind of, is quite hands-on, and I do go around and give kind of demonstrations and such to students, is how do I adapt my teaching methods, my style, to the new learning environment? As you can see, an example at the bottom there is a screen. We've all got those in our classrooms at Crompton, and I've used them basically in my lessons, and I've started doing this from all stages. So from year 7, which is kind of age 11, all the way up to kind of 18-year-old students, where they can still come up and kind of show me their work, but we've got this kind of division of a screen to make it safe for both of us. So the students are able to kind of show me work, and it is getting used to, from my point of view, in terms of how clear my instructions are for a student to actually, from me just pointing through a screen at certain kind of elements to improve and how to do it. But that articulation is kind of, it's getting there. In terms of the well-being, I think, like I've already touched upon, the idea is even though in the UK we've had our 6-week break and we've been back after that for 5 weeks now, it is very tiring, and there's been no let up really in terms of rest. A lot of teachers like myself, we've not really had our usual 6 weeks off where we're able to go and travel and kind of reinvigorate. We've been focused on how do we come back and make the most for our students. So a lot of that has been, like I've said, redesigning and reshaping the curriculum moving forward. What do we need to kind of teach and reinforce? So really, it's been kind of that focus, rather than having the kind of 6 weeks, it's been focused on like the next steps. What are our kind of plans? So as well, it's having a plan A, it's having a plan B, a C, and a D, because the kind of the shift at the moment is how do we plan in something that is ever changing, that week by week is a completely different picture. One thing we've done as a school is we've set up our own YouTube channel, and we're adding kind of resources there that in the kind of the situation that students were to be kind of sent home, they get the same experience they would at school as they would at home via our teachers in our department, providing demonstrations that are kind of provide clearer examples for students to follow at home. And they're also kind of getting booklets and such with extra information to help them. The future, so this is me kind of finishing up, but thinking about this idea of with reshaping the curriculum and what do we need to teach and kind of move forward. I've put in there a picture of Ed Van Monk. That was him, self-portrait after the Spanish flu, and I think you can look at him, you can think, you know what, he looks a bit tired, he looks a bit worn out by what's happened, but he's still got the color there, he's still kind of there as an artist. And that's kind of what we need to be kind of working on, this idea of what are we going to do, what are our kind of key messages for all our students, and how do we kind of keep the color, keep the kind of the excitement there as we move forward. It's been really interesting today to hear everyone's kind of inputs and different kind of concepts, and also kind of to see how this has been a bit of a leveler, how everyone has experienced similar ideas as we've gone through. There's just a few links there, and I'd like it if you could just kind of jot those down and kind of keep up to date, because it is a case of of us networking really, and kind of keeping in touch and keeping informed with each other. So that is me for today, but thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity, and I look forward to everyone else. Thank you. I will say as well, I've forgotten, I'm going to pass on to Graham. Graham, I've not met in person, but I will pass virtually over to you, and you can start your presentation now.
Thank you very much, Brad. Can you all hear me? Great. I am, as introduced by Susan Coles, Head of Art at the Royal Grammar School in Newcastle. We had a slightly different experience, and as I sort my screen sharing out here, I'll talk you into that. Yeah, we went into lockdown, just like everybody else. It was the 16th of March. My GCSE students, all 56 of them, were 2 days away from actually doing their exam. So they'd pretty much finished our course. But as an independent school within which parents are paying for their children to attend, we were expected to teach every lesson straight away from that Friday evening. I'm going to acknowledge a few things here which people have touched on, especially Brad there with the curriculum. And that's sharing good practice in the Northeast, which comes from those networks experiences and my involvement as a moderator for AQA, both GCSE and A-level. Around about 5 years ago, I went to a school called St. Aidan's in Sunderland and was looking for a digital solution. And I spoke to a lady called Alana Nipper, who was frustrated with the iDocio app that I was trying to use for digital marking. And I didn't want to take sketchbooks home because we have 100 and odd kids doing GCSE and 50 odd kids doing A-level. And they're all ambitious to be successful. So they're aiming for A stars and 9 grades. So the amount of work you were carrying home was gigantic. So the digital platform was something for me to kind of lessen workload, as well as create a connection between the spaces within which kids were learning in the studio, but actually we could mark at home or elsewhere. We basically went all in for Teams back in 2016, and Teams was our pivotal kind of classroom replacement during this phase. But as Brad had said, most importantly was our curriculum. And hopefully you can see this slide on screen. I'm not sure if I can increase the size of that, but as all artists do, they steal. This was stolen from UAL as a foundation kind of course experiment. And it basically ditches what was previously a linear approach, I believe, to art education, where you see everybody paint a skull, everybody paint a still life, etc. And it's graded based upon technical ability and prowess with the material, rather than from the personality. And this increases the diversification, it increases independence, it increased essentially a research-based approach. And this allows many different individuals to essentially on the dark column to choose a practitioner, the center column to choose a material. So when they were working from home, this was bloody brilliant. And then also a selection of processes. Each student within a class has to choose, as you can see on the left-hand side, one visual way of presenting evidence of a material, then a process, and then a varied practitioners. This happens 3 times within a cycle of 2 weeks. Every lesson being taught, the student had to upload content of what they'd done research-wise, and then we would have a platform within which we're all like this on a screen talking through people's ideas which they'd previously uploaded. For me, I believe this is the crux to our success throughout the whole lockdown period where we were teaching on screen. Every student chooses their expertise, their interest, it taps into prior knowledge and prior experiences, whatever they may be. Obviously, our context is completely different to a lot of different people's out there. And the context of that is as students have been to a lot of places. They've seen a lot of art. They've read a lot of books. They have access to many different devices, both technological as well as analog in terms of books and libraries. Therefore, they drive their own curriculum. It creates a lot of work for a teacher, but what we end up trying to do is push back on the student at all times for it to be target-led from their perspective. So let me show you what our approach was when we went into March. This is how your classroom looked at the start of the day. These are our teams. So we would team teach and we would have meetings set up. So essentially we'd transfer all of our timetables straight into Teams and we would set up meetings. There were rules in that, which other people have obviously spoken about. All cameras had to be on, all work had to be uploaded at least 24 hours before a meeting starts so the teacher could see what was happening. The student would have to identify 3 things which they were going to select in terms of to talk about as the center of a critical discussion. And they would also have to offer 3 certain refinements or improvements. And really, all we had to do there was kind of be that friendly face. I'm not arrogant enough to think that anybody could teach my class, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that I could teach anybody else's class. During that lockdown phase, we wanted to see our kids wanted to see us. That's what people missed. That's what kept us all going. That's what gave us a thumbs up. So if I move across slightly in that slide, you'll be able to see that team leads you into a OneNote screen. This is what OneNote looks like. This is our didactic space. This is our marking space. And this is an example of a student who uploaded her work over the course of 2 weeks in a cycle. She was reading Beatrix Potter books. She'd been given one as a child, and that kind of was her driving force for her year 10 work. She'd taken a cup, which she'd been gifted, and was creating a Peter Rabbit jacket for it. This is just the thing that brings you joy. You see something come up on a screen like this the day before you have to hold a meeting, and you can discuss this, and you really don't have to direct it much further. But it's there for everybody to see. It's shared. During that Teams meeting of 20 students or so, we would have 5 groups. 5 groups that sit on the channel at the side would all have their own discussions before meeting the teacher. Therefore, all you're really doing is fulfilling that role that you're often taught about in teacher training, is to be a facilitator. You sit there as the central point of view, just providing the smiles, the enthusiasm, the encouragement, and the pat on the back. The camera has to be on. It has to be on. There are stories there of people sitting just listening, maybe playing Xbox, maybe eating dinner. But if the camera's on, we don't mind you eating your breakfast or brushing your hair, as long as you've uploaded your work. That's the dynamic that we were all in. My daughter was here, my dog was here. Quite often the whole family was in the background looking at other people's work. And if you told a student 8 months ago that I was going to drop into their FaceTime feed at least twice a day, often 5 times a week, they would probably balked at me. The thing here was the workload element. Yeah, it was great. I could go out in the morning for a walk. I wasn't tied to a building, tap into a lesson, but we were spending a lot of time behind the screen. And a lot of teachers, students who were falling in and out of health, good health or bad health, needed a central point, somewhere they could use as a resource. So not just the curriculum approach, but the digital approach had to shift. So I created what lots of other people have talked about in terms of an exhibition space, a central space, but also a didactic kind of central space to like a VLE. This is what we achieved in SharePoint during my downtime in March. We created an exhibition space for students' work that never got to be shown to a moderator, and we ended up creating learning spaces. If we can move this across the other way. It became a platform to celebrate our studios, and you could click into your year group option, and you could click into the studio within which you were supposedly previously sat and create that as your virtual backdrop, kind of like replacing what you would have had even though you weren't around.
Graham, apologies to interrupt, but we need to start to wrap up because
I'm going to do that. So it became a platform within which everybody could upload pre-recorded content like YouTube, etc., as well as share the works that were going on during the lockdown phase. This continues now. Every single lesson I have is still based on Teams meetings. Some students are in, some students are out. So it is the blended kind of curriculum process, kind of future that we're involved in. Okay, thank you.
That is great, Graham, and obviously Brad. Susan, did you want a concluding comment very briefly?
Just to say thank you very much to both of them. That was fantastic. Thank you. And I'll see you soon around.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So moving on, we're going slightly more north of Europe, and we're off to Finland. And Mira, you are up with your group. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for all the previous presenters. And good morning from Finland. It's been wonderful to listen to these presentations this far, such great and innovative work in a difficult context during difficult times. I'm very, very impressed. So my name is Mira Kallio-Teivin. I'm a professor in Aalto University and as mentioned before, one of the 3 InSEA World Counselors for Europe, along with Susan and Gabriela. And I have invited 3 highly experienced and fantastic Finnish art teachers to join us this morning and share their post-pandemic experiences as art teachers and discuss what kind of real learning and rethinking the professional practices required this year from them and how that has changed their teaching, perhaps for good. So the presenting teachers are Sanni Virtanen from Ruusuvuori School, which is in the city of Vantaa, very close by Helsinki and part of the capital area. Elina Ylitepsa from Tähtikunta School, which is very up in the north in Lapland, in Sodankylä. And then Matteus Pentti from Ylästö School, also from the city of Vantaa. So I am now turning to Sanni. So please, Sanni, the floor is yours.
Thank you kindly. It's been really interesting. I'm going to share my screen now, hopefully. Or not. Just a moment. Now,
there we go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm choosing a slightly wider perspective to this now. I hope I'm not going too far from the core, but listening to all the expertise and the greatness of art education here, I chose to show you something a bit different. This is Radical Hope, which is a pretty bold statement, because I'm going to try to explain fast how the spreading the beauty of art education to the whole school might be possible, or at least looks like it's going to be possible in our school. I'm an art teacher first, but then also my second big passion is climate education. I believe in active citizenship, and that is what I've been doing for the past years. For me, the COVID and Corona is one more symptom for the climate crisis. And hopefully it's the red flag that now tells us to stop and think. I teach teenagers, so for whatever I do, I try to see that teenagers first. It's not their job to save the world, but it's not in their best interest to sit and wait either. So we must find something that is in between. I believe that there is a need and the right to build a better future together. It's something that is in the core of humanity, and we have somehow lost it on the way. It might be a responsibility and a must, but if we think of it as a need and a right, we get to more beautiful grounds. I don't need to tell you that in the art class, we have loads of beauty and loads of ways of thinking that the world needs right now. We, the art teachers, we are able to ask questions without answers. We speak about emotions and feelings and the right to express them way more than, let's say, the science teacher next door. And this to me is the beauty of art education. And I started 2 years ago thinking, how could we spread the beauty of art education to the whole school? At least the English people probably are familiar of the transition towns. And this is Sophie Banks from Transition Towns thinking that each place needs to design its own pathway to the future because each place knows the soil. I don't think we as a school can wait for others to decide for us. We need to see the school as it is, see the potential we have, and design our way towards the future. I asked the principal of the school if I could have some time in a meeting, and what we did with 40 teachers, we started thinking what would be the utopia of our school. What the teachers said, all of them, not only our teachers, but everybody, was that there should be more empathy, time, connection between people, and so forth in the school. There should be more hope, less hurry, less frustration, less silence and fear. I see clear connection to art education in this, and I see that there is a way to somehow give the permission to all the teachers to bring more of this thinking that we are so yearning for to their classes. So we took a bold move. We decided that instead of trying to add all those things into the classes, we decided to make one set of electives that is 90 minutes per week for the 8th and 9th graders, so 14 to 16-year-olds. We decided to plan it well. There was 15 teachers and 140 pupils working together. We decided to make it a long-term solution, to have cooperation everywhere. We decided to go with teachers' well-being first. We have to be able to do this on our own terms, and we are not going to stop, at least completely, before year 2030. So it's not something that we are doing just because of Corona. It's something that we feel that we need deeply in the whole system. These are the courses that we are giving, or they can choose from. I'm not going into them there is no time for that, but you can see that there's a lot of courses to choose from, and none of these would exist if we didn't decide that it's okay to offer these kinds of courses in this kind of school. So the core probably is that once we start working together towards a better future, the better future is already here. It's not it's a method. It's not a goal somewhere far, far away. It's a way of thinking that everybody is welcome and everybody is needed in this building a better world. So finally, I think what is needed is to go back to the basics. Think through, what am I doing here? What makes me happy? And what is happening to the world? If we just say it out loud that this situation causes feelings, it's not easy, but we are here together, then we can go far and we have much happier students. All this so that the teacher has time and help and cooperation, and the students know that we hear them. That's it, 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
Thank you, Sanni. That's excellent. Excellent timing. So now we move up in the north and to Elina Yliteet.
Just a minute. I put my clock for measure 5 minutes. Okay. Hello to everybody, and let's start. Okay, I'm here. Sodankylä is here in North Finland, and it's size of at least my, and now it's hope you see, because in my screen your pictures are in front of my picture, but Sodankylä is size of Belgium, same size almost. And if we go to, for example, art museums, we have to go to foreign country if we are in Belgium, because we don't have museums in Sodankylä. Art is not, I think art is not so important for many people because we have a lot of nature environment which makes us happy. Some details about my home municipality. It's a difficult word for Finnish, my Finnish mouth. And so, because we have so big distances, we don't have any problems to keep some distance to each other, and maybe that's why we don't have had any coronavirus infections so far. We had shutdown or lockdown in the beginning, in the springtime, and we moved all our students to distant learning. This is some information of my schools where I'm teaching, and a picture of my art class and mobile. My alongside my work as art teacher, I have been a digi tutor. So my point of view is a bit to that direction too. We shared during a week computers to families who didn't have our laptops. We shared, and if they hadn't laptop, or if they hadn't enough laptops, because some families can be very big here because of reasons. And so we use Teams and Office 365. Thank you, Graham, for introducing it, so I don't need to. And this half year has been very big holistic experience, and it's very, very difficult to tell anything about it in 5 minutes. So I don't introduce my student works and all the problems and how we solved them, but shortly I used a lot of photography, art made stuff you can find home, drawing, sugar, snow, everything like that, toilet paper, those, what is it in English? I don't remember. Okay, and that's how my job consists today. I still do some digital work. And what now after the current shutdown, and what has the coronavirus influenced to our life here? You can read them, so I don't read them. I'm just silent. Maybe that's friendly for you because of my accent. We nowadays we wash our hands before when we start lessons, but we don't use antibacterial cleaning systems to avoid you know, the resistant microbes. And our life is maybe a bit like it has been before. This is from Facebook. Kind of meme. So this is situation now, but as we know, it can be changed. And I think about the IT technology, that it's good for us. It brings world closer to me. I can speak here to you now. But because we have a lot of minerals in our soil, we have rich soil, so we will have mines, and we have them, and we will have more. And I'm a bit worried about people think that digitalization and electricization, electric cars and things like that are environment friendly. Because if we build a car, old-time car, we need 3 kilograms of copper. If we build a electric car, we need 330 kilograms, I think. And if we build a truck, electric truck, we need 3,000 kilograms of copper. So there's something to think about in this. And that's, today I'm a bit more worried about that than coronavirus. My clock doesn't say anything. Do I still have time? Oh, didn't I?
We've got about a minute. If you could wrap up, that would be really good, Ellie. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I didn't remember to put it on. Sorry if I took more time.
I'm watching you. Don't...
Bye. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elina. That was it was great and very different situation up there in Lapland than it is in the central of Europe, as you could see. And now I move on to Matteus Pentti's video greeting, because Matteus is in here, but he's also in a summer cottage, which is not with the best internet connections. It doesn't have the best internet connections at the moment. So I will share this video with you. Here we go. Can you see it well? Andy, thumbs up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matteus Pentti, a teacher from Vantaa, Finland. I teach visual arts and film in an 800 pupil comprehensive school in Vantaa, which is located in the Finnish capital area. This year, the kids entering my classroom, it being online or physical classroom, they are ages 11 to 16. When the ongoing pandemic closed the schools in Finland last March, we were in a very new situation. It served us many challenges, but in my experience also many possibilities to update and evolve our practices as teachers. The tradition of art teaching in schools is very hands-on. Learning is strongly bound to learning by doing through different mediums and techniques. This applies for the art that the pupils are producing, as well as the work we teachers do. We are accustomed to guide and coach our pupils hands-on and challenge them to improve their problem-solving skills with constant interaction throughout the lesson. Portfolios are gathered mainly physically in schools, and the level of teaching technology skills varies much from school to school. Now that meeting face-to-face was prohibited, it felt like we had to build our teaching practices from ground up. How I can teach with only using a camera and microphone? That seems very difficult. Not anymore, but then it did. And when I'm used to working with living and breathing creative children, it felt like the pupils were far off, far away. So it felt very difficult. After the first shock, I turned to art teachers' Facebook groups and other online forums where teachers have been connected actively. We soon realized together that all teachers nationwide and worldwide were facing similar problems. First, how to build an online classroom for teaching. This means keeping in contact with the pupils. 2, how to gather and organize teaching materials in a form that could easily be shown to pupils online. 3, how to get art supplies to the kids safely, or how to come up with projects and smaller exercises that all the kids can take part in with materials they already have in their households. And 4, how to teach pupils to document their work and send the documents to the teacher for assessment. I saw a huge possibility for grassroots collaboration and how it could widely benefit art teachers. Most art lessons in our comprehensive school systems are held by class teachers who might have not specialized in visual arts at all. Therefore, it would be essential to offer materials for them also. There was no time to wait for national or regional instructions. It had to happen very fast. During the first few days of quarantine, we managed to build a website with a small group of art teachers. All content should be highly adaptive for different platforms and applications. I wrote a simple step-by-step guide on how to hold and participate in an online meeting. Some teachers started to make lesson plans for making art with household items, like making paints with spices and installations with clothes and toys found in their homes. Others search online for free online exhibitions to visit with pupils. And some of us made our first YouTube tutorial videos, which happened to be my favorite part of last spring's teaching. There is a massive data bank of material in our fingertips on the internet, but to edit it and choose relevant content for different age groups is time-consuming. More people joined day by day to our project, and in the end, we had built a web page that at least I am very proud of. It happened in 1 week. We have had thousands of clicks and views by now. Of course, last spring was sort of a 3-month sprint. At least I at first thought that distance learning online would be a one-time thing. But now I feel that there has been a paradigm shift in teaching. Last spring taught me that the importance of collaboration and the power of technology. At least my teaching habits will never be the same. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matteus and Sanni and Elina. And I think our time is up. So I turn to Andy at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mira and Kitos. And let's move to back to my group. I'm going to cut mine a little bit short because I can see that we're running out of time, and I don't want people to miss the opportunity to share. So I am going to be a little bit speedy on mine so that Kate and Beth get to be able to speak. So thinking outside of the box was the title. I want to focus on teacher development and how this can develop not only resources and content for the department, but also importantly their subject knowledge. So I'm very much interested in thinking about partnerships, collaborations, working with outside agencies for teachers to develop them professionally. Very much thinking about their own practice, their making, their own subject knowledge. And by taking part in a community of practice-based teachers, this can empower. This can also drive and personalize their own needs within their different contexts. So basically, I'm getting people to think of outside the box to empower teachers, thinking about grassroots sharing as an opportunity for enabling and facilitating change. So I'm going to start with a little story. A story about a university, a school, and an art gallery coming together to develop a network for artist teachers, which started about a year ago, but then continued throughout the pandemic and throughout the lockdown. I'd noticed for many years that when training art teachers as students left the university, after they finish the course, they go into their secondary schools, they go out into London for us, and many struggle to maintain their own artistic practice. Teaching can take over all of your creative energies, and many teachers talk about the struggle to maintain their own making and their own energy and desire and drive as a consequence. So I approached the Freeland Foundation in Camden and one of our partnership schools with an idea. to grow an artist-teacher network to help art teachers maintain and develop their artist-teacher role. And both Kate and Beth are going to talk a little bit about the aspects of this project from their perspective and consider from what they've been doing has been important to the art gallery and to the secondary school. So it's all about collaborations, it's about partnerships, it's about looking outside of your own organization for others who can share insights, who can help with understandings, and equally have that desire for change and development. So this is nothing new. The artist teacher as a kind of a phenomenon, Leslie Burgess and I at the UCL in London have been critically engaging and developing art in teachers' philosophy for over 20 years. And certainly via our PGCE, our teacher training program, that has been the main kind of vehicle. However, I don't think what has happened of late in school because of government policies and practice and all sorts of other kind of reasons that this kind of phenomena is starting to lose ground in education circles in the UK. We had many courses in the UK at one point, many MAs focusing around this kind of philosophy and approach, but those have all reduced in numbers, and so have the conversations about this in schools. And often when artist teachers explain their reasons for why they would want to promote, these are the kinds of things that you see coming to the fore, the 3 points that you see here about their own development, how that benefits them as a teacher, as well as the students and pupils learning, about it being a rich way of being able to engage with contemporary art practice and the issues that are very evident in the contemporary art practice, how that helps inform them and develop into things that they can use within their curriculum. And then finally, the last bit, as I said, the importance of partnerships, working with prestigious institutions, thinking about how that stimulates for them and fosters really important engagement with visual art culture. So I'm going to skip through this because this is a little bit about my own practice. But I mean, I've practiced as an artist teacher all of my professional life, and I continue to exhibit while I teach. I started in school. I started making with children, easel at the front of the room, turntable at the front of the room during the lessons, making with them, alongside them, using my own work to crit alongside them in the classroom. And it wasn't until I realized that this wasn't always supported in the school that I had to sort of move from a school system and start to think about working in FE, HE. So why would I want to advocate developing this kind of notion of a community of artists and a community of diverse practice? It's been a long established thing for me, and increasingly that's what we've been trying to do with the Artist Teacher Network in London. Thinking about these ways of engaging and developing our own personal practice, thinking about the relationships and the tensions between the teaching, the education, and the making has formed many of our discussions. But importantly, this network has been led and run by the teachers. It's a very sort of open and allows for them to bring to the network in a very very important sort of way for them. It's created an ongoing dialogue for us all. It's really helped us as a community, as a group, start to think about more than just the training that they get in school, more than just the sort of predictable, generic sorts of understandings that they may have engaged. It's very much focused, very bespoke on the sorts of aspects that are key to them, their making, and their communities. And thinking about themselves within this has been also an important part of this process. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to talk any more about the image that you see, because I'm going to hand over to Beth, who is going to talk about how that sort of development has worked from a gallery point of view, the sorts of things that they've engaged with, and how that's been helpful in the COVID time and what they've been able to develop. So I'm now going to stop share and let you switch over, Kate. Okay.
Okay. Hello. I'm just going to set up my screen share. And play from start. Can everyone see that? Yes, very big. So I'm Beth. I'm Beth Lloyd. I'm the education curator at Freelands Foundation. So those of you that don't know, we are a charitable foundation that supports art education and art organisations across the UK. Our offices are London based, and we've also got a gallery space, but we do work across the UK as well with all different organisations. And I'm in Chester this weekend, so I'm not in London, I'm in the northwest, and I can confirm it's very rainy as well. So we have a gallery space here where we kind of do a range of exhibitions about the projects and partnerships and research that we do. And in this space, thinking about what we provided for teachers before March, we provided school visits, we created a series of PDF resources, and we run projects in schools which kind of aim to critically unpick areas of art education. And we also kind of commission lots of research. So that's what our offering before March kind of looked like. And also to say we're a fairly new education team. It's only myself and our head of education, and it's kind of been I've been with the foundation for 2 years. It's only from January we've been really thinking about our offering and how we work with teachers as an education team in theory. We, however, really want to be in the position to change things up and shake what we've been doing previously. And it just so happens that March happened, which has given us some breathing space. So we were already thinking, how have we kind of got into this rhythm of doing things like other places do? Let's shake it up. So when lockdown happened, there were two things that got affected that I was personally working on. One thing I really want to talk about really briefly is a project with a brand new school in London, in Borough. It was meant to be a year-long project around January to November. And then we kind of decided to move it online. The artists did lots of like virtual art clubs where they used Teams. They did a lot of drawings online and things like that. And it's something we never would have done before, that format. But I think the learnings from this project was thinking about working with schools in our immediate area. It's kind of opened up that we don't have to work with schools just in London, basically, because of the ability of the technology. And also, I think it makes us question a lot about the sort of levels of access and the materials that we're using. And it's really made me realise that the leveller that the classroom plays within learning and the gallery or workshop space can play as a leveller in terms of access. But what I mainly wanted to talk about was what Andy just spoke about, is the Artist Teacher Network. So these are some shots of the variety of sessions that we've ran so far in the space. And I think we'd ran about 4 or 5 at this point, Andy, by March. I'm not really sure. I think we're about to organise another one. I think we held one like a few days before lockdown, actually. It was quite lucky. So we kind of ran a variety of crits. We did we did a pop-up exhibition, and we talked a lot about practice, and we used the space. It was a lot for the participants. It was a lot about being in the space together and critically thinking about their work. And I think there was a point where we felt like there was real momentum growing, but obviously lockdown happened and we couldn't all be in the same space together. And I spent a lot of time talking to different teachers, and I got the sense that, as we've kind of talked about today, every situation was completely different. And it was clear that everybody had really different needs as well. There wasn't just one thing that would help everybody. So we decided to hold a Zoom, and we did a kind of virtual where we tried to get lots of different voices in, touching on all these different conversations that I've been having with different teachers. We brought in someone from YSI, Yorkshire Sculpture International, to talk about their Sculpture a Day project. The Zoom was great, but it just felt like it could have been 5 hours long because everybody had different needs at this point. And there wasn't one resource or one piece of content that particularly kind of would suit the community, the artist teachers. Some really wanted to use the time to focus on their practice. Some didn't want to think about their practice at all. Some just really wanted curriculum support. I think we tried quite a lot of different methods, didn't we, Kate and Andy, to try and engage them, but it was tricky. So we decided to create a series of short IGTV series. This came from a lot of talking that we'd done together, myself, Kate and Andy, and we realised people were time poor, and there was also kind of an influx from different institutions and different other galleries of kind of online content and resources. But we wanted these to reflect kind of the conversations we were having and recognizing the kind of vast variety in issues and things that were going on for arts education at that time. So it was a weekly IGTV series inviting artists, educators to share their varied practice during August. So weekly we produce these videos, so I just thought I'd briefly go over them, but I know I'm very short on time. So we invited Emily Gopal, who talked about how to kind of foster and celebration diversity in art curriculum, because of obviously the brutal killing of George Floyd. There was a lot around kind of what we're teaching in art education as well, and rethinking that. So she kind of supported that with primary. And then we had Toma, who's at other art school. They thought about how to critically talk about your work. These are the artist teachers that just wanted to think about their practice at this time. We spoke to these two teachers who have set up a project, Unknown Learning, and it was all about teaching outside the classroom and how it's changed their opinion on traditional methods and things like that. We also spoke to Sarah, who spoke about how to kind of make a more diverse curriculum. And we spoke to a teacher who I was actually working with on a project, and she spoke about the issues around creating eco-conscious art curriculum. It was a real kind of variety, really. That's my last slide, isn't it? And I think, sorry, it's kind of, we're hoping to grow this as well. So this is obviously a pilot series that we ran, and we really want to kind of continue this. But I think it's completely made us kind of rethink our offering and question the purpose of the more kind of traditional resources that we were producing, kind of be it especially in the materials that we're referencing, but also there's many points around accessibility. As Susan mentioned, kind of access to internet, that's kind of maybe become more apparent as well, and the differences. And yeah, we are looking at extending this this kind of series. Sorry, 2 minutes. Yeah. And it's quite. I think we're starting to engage with. I was part of a critical friends group with teachers in Yorkshire on Thursday, and kind of critically thinking about how we can adapt one resource for many different needs. So I was looking the National Art, Creative and Cultural Education Survey. They kind of did some feedback in the last few months around how galleries and teachers were working together, and they was kind of saying how kind of using thematic approaches, kind of and things like providing videos and interviews and things like that, and kind of providing more of a menu. It was a menu of well-pitched options that they quoted, and yeah, and quite a lot of teachers referred to that as using kind of film, so kind of giving starting points and then teachers can kind of adapt it. But I personally don't feel like for us there's kind of one way that we can we can't really go back to the traditional ways that we were engaging with teachers. Even when lockdown is over, I think it's totally changed our perspective, and what we can actually offer has to be kind of detrimental, as Andy said, on partnerships, collaboration and being part of networks and really understanding. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame that it took this for us to really realise.
Okay, Beth, thank you very much. All of this can be found on the Freelands website, but also on the Instagram site at art_artist_teacher_. Thank you. Kate, would you like to just talk about what happened in your school, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Last one. I'm going to share my screen. Desktop. Share. Right. Present. Can everybody see that? Yeah, all good? Okay. So I come from the school part of our artist teacher network, whereas Beth is the gallery, Andy is university. I'm a secondary school teacher in Southwest London. And this presentation is more about what we've taken from lockdown and what we've taken from being away from school, and how we can actually kind of change this new academic year as we are all back in school. We are all in, we're in bubbles, and it's quite a surreal experience. But thinking about creativity as an artist teacher, I definitely feel most creative when I'm in school with my students, and it's joyous to be back working in classrooms again. I wanted to think about some key things that we're kind of focusing on moving forward, and that is a focus on building resilience in our students, building confidence in themselves, having a lot more fun whilst we're doing lessons, remembering that less is more. A lot of people have been talking about slowing down, and I think that's very relevant and very important. And also just thinking about how we can change the world with our students. I wanted to touch upon something that we do with our students a lot, which is called process workshops. We do this normally with older students, but this year we're going to be doing it with the younger students as well. We do a series of workshops based on how you think, how you develop ideas, and allow that process to overtake the outcome. So it means that we are kind of focusing on art being something about living in the world and reflecting upon the world rather than a subject or a job, which is what our students are so preoccupied with a lot of the time. We want them to use art as a way to be better people once they finish school. So we do workshops like this, which are very fun. This was yesterday, where we do a 1 hour exhibition. They have a space and a random word, and they have to make an exhibition in response to that. It's physical and it's engaging. So within our bubbles, we've rejected technology whilst we're in the classroom and just gone as physical and creative and social as possible. And it's been really good fun to be doing these things again. It's very different. You know, there's lots more rules, lots more limitations, but we're doing what we can to just be as in the moment as possible with our students. Obviously, during lockdown, at the same time, we had so much happening in the world in the news, which our students really were affected by. And one of my focuses this year is to take a step back and help our students process what's happened. So this is an example of a poem and a photograph that one of my younger students kind of shared with me in response to her worries about kind of racial inequalities, social inequalities. What really stood out to me in this poem that she sent me was that line in red that says, "The lack of awareness taught in our schools, and it needs to stop." And I was really like moved by that. And we've been talking a lot, you know, I've been asking her for advice on how we can do things better for students like her, young Black students, women. I love her recreation on the right here, where she was talking about being a woman, being Black, and also feeling that that apple represents not being able to speak out and say how she feels a lot of the time. So yeah, we're doing some exciting things with that. These are some kind of various very strange portraits that students sent in over lockdown. And for me, what makes me happy is it's a focus on meaning, on what's happening in the world, rather than making something pretty and making something cute. And I think that our responsibility as teachers is very much to help these students process what's going on and take charge and make the changes that need to happen, because in my opinion, they're our only hope with everything that's going on at the moment. And yeah, I'm excited that they're going to kind of take over from us. In terms of our resources, we have really gone online, and I think it's been very interesting what people have been saying about access to technology, because there is a reliance on that now, and it makes me very nervous. The inequalities in our students' access to things at home is very clear now, and I really want to think of some ways of ensuring that all our students can access everything that they need, whether they're at home, in school, whatever situation. The online social media resources are incredible. Like some on the right there are just some good ones to look at in terms of diversifying the curriculum and approaching some of these topics. And I just wanted to finish by saying that's our Instagram. So that's my Instagram. That's our Lady Margaret School Instagram for my art department, if you want to see. And then also, as Andy and Beth were saying, that's our Artist Teacher Network Instagram as well. It's a really wonderful thing, and I hope some of you will access it and it will infuse some creativity from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Bev. Basically, just to summarize, to say, I mean, this is a piece of ongoing, an ongoing project. What it looks like in the coming months is still very much about the discussion within the community, very still a conversation with the group about what their needs are and how we can support and facilitate each other in that sort of community of artist teachers. So I'd just like now to go over to Ernst, who is going to give us some questions. So if you would like to, Ernst, maybe give us a few that you've picked out from the chat and maybe direct to the different participants. Thank you, Ernst.
Thank you, Andy. So I'm a little bit worried about the time because it's already 1 o'clock. So perhaps this is more a kind of summary or wrapping up. So what I learned from this session is very different aspects. So the first one is that it was often mentioned in the chat and also in the presentations that we have a lot in common. So on the one hand side, so the experience are very similar everywhere. But on the other hand side, what we learned, from instance, from Lapland is that there are also huge differences in respect to the specific situation. And this is also learning from the soil, that we have very specific situations and we have to look for solutions in the specific situations. So I think this is perhaps the main aspect in the beginning. Through the pandemic, I think we face a kind of change of paradigms. And I think we have really to look at this in a very good way and what we can learn from this. And I think after the pandemic, if we do a good job, arts education will not be the same as it has been before. So one point is really that we learn, I think, a lot from this potentials what the digitalization offers for art education. And they were very interesting and very inspiring examples. And thank you very much for those. For instance, for the collective diary in Greece, the communities, the social media, a new learning, what was mentioned in the UK, hands-on on nature, but also in respect to the digitalization, that we also have to look at nature and this experience, the central experience. So from this point, I think in respect to the format of arts teaching, we have to learn a lot from the experience we are now collecting. And my main issue is now, how can we save this experience? How can we really collect what the kind of experience we have all over the Europe, and how can we develop a kind of new format of art education into the future relating to these different experiences? So this was the first point, the changes in respect to the formats. The other one is that we have that we face a change in respect to themes or to the content of art education. And here I found very inspiring. It was very often mentioned that art education answers the situation. It answers a very emotional situation. On the one hand side, on the teacher level, but also on the pupils level. And this kind of dealing with these feelings, for instance, with fear, I think this is something which we really have to deal with in future art education, but also to giving hope, for instance. I remember very good the example of Tim when they are destroying the monster. So this is a very emotional act, and I like this very much. And this is perhaps related to the question of hope. So I think we don't have only to look at the formats, but also to look at the content of what future art education after the pandemic has to look like. So I think we are in a process of transformation, and I think this is the exciting thing we are facing at the moment in art education. I think we experience that art education is transforming, and this is done by this COVID, by this horrible COVID. But I think we have to do the best out of it. And there have been also some mentions, some comments on what this could look what could be the results for InSEA. And I think we have to reflect within the European board what we there have been a lot of suggestions. And I think we have to reflect this in our board team. What does this mean for us in InSEA and in InSEA Europe? So perhaps this is not opening questions and answers, but more a kind of wrapping up. And perhaps to conclude, I would really like to thank Andy for this wonderful initiative and this wonderful preparation, and all these people giving support. Mainly Patsy, she did a lot of work in the background. And so I just wanted to say thank you, all of you, also for participating, for your wonderful presentations. And I think we should continue with this exercise. I know that Mira is already preparing the next seminar. Perhaps you can just make an announcement about what you are dealing with. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Ernst. Just to clarify that Susan is making the next one, and I am making the third one in February. So if Susan wants to say something,
okay,
that would be fine.
Sorry.
No worries.
Well, we don't have a plan yet, because I think it's going to be based on what we think is the success of this and what people need. And we may be looking more in depth at the artist teacher role, actually, which was touched upon today.
And we also said that we would like to gather some feedback.
Yes.
So that'd be very helpful, so that we can develop this based on what was good and what would have been wanted more, and so on.
Absolutely. And on that point, that's pretty much what we're trying to do here. There's no hidden agenda. It's very much about trying to extend our reach, to include and to continue to develop a community of practice across Europe for our artist teachers, artist educators. So can I offer my thanks to the members and the guests who have given their time today and shared their thoughts. We are very grateful to you, and we want to continue this conversation and want to continue the work with you. So thank you for your participation. As I mentioned, it will be recorded. This has been recorded, and likewise, as touched on there, we are going to contact people to continue that discussion, to enable you to be able to be a part of this discussion again in the future. I'm just going to very quickly leave you with the final slide to say that if you are interested in anything that we have been doing today, if you are interested in wanting to continue this discussion and be a part of InSEA, please visit the website. If there's anything that you feel you want to be a part of, this is a very wide community, a large community of art educators, artists, art teachers, artist teachers, community, etc. You get the idea across the world. And this is the sort of focus for the InSEA, is to obviously to share those experiences, to be able to improve practice and to strengthen the position of art in the sort of different educational settings. So please visit the website, please follow the links, please contact the secretary, InSEA secretary. We will be writing to you all after this with notifications about InSEA, and obviously notifications about how to join, but importantly, hopefully to continue the conversation. Glenn, are you still with us? You've literally got 30 seconds if you wanted to say anything before we disappear. That leads me to think Glenn has probably disappeared. So once again, thank you for today.
Hello, Andy, I'm still here.
Oh, you're here. Okay. Did you want to say anything, Glenn?
Yeah, if you don't mind, thank you. Just to thank everyone, especially the presenters. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Yes. Because I had difficulty with my sound. Sometimes it was dropping out. I think it's at my end. So I just want to thank the presenters, because what's very refreshing about this is the focus that we saw here on what's actually happening in the classroom, what's actually happening in kind of real life, and a focus of maybe a little bit partnership with universities. And so that's great. And this is part of a series, this seminar. There have already been one in North America, 2 in North America. There's one in Latin America just on Wednesday, one in Australia. So it's a series that you have the opportunity to take part in if you are an InSEA member. And I forgot to actually, I know that Andy in his wonderful organization asked us all to include our countries in the screen name. I couldn't remember how to do it, but here I am here. Okay, I'm in Scotland. And so what I'd like to do is invite you all to join InSEA. If you're not already a member, then please go to this address. It's easy, it takes a couple of minutes, and join up. And the really good news is we're going to offer you a 20% discount if you join after this seminar. And so finally, just very briefly, I want to thank the organisers, our elected European councillors. You've done a fantastic job, as you always do. The European Regional Council, Ernst and his team, and in particular Andy, because this is not an easy thing to put together. He made it look easy, which is part of his skill. So thanks very much, Andy, it's great. And those presenters, if you're not already InSEA members, we really need you. We need your voice. And you can see yourself that this is such a wonderful opportunity for us just to actually celebrate what we do, but also, as Ernst says, question what we might do in the future. So Andy, great job. Thank you very much. Patsy, thank you too. In the background, making it all happen. Great stuff. Thank you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Hope you all have a very good, well-rested weekend, what's left of it, and we look forward to hearing and seeing you all very soon. Thank you.